of some of the happenings currently happening in the country. Quite a number of events ongoing presently, but we'll just be highlighting a few. And we hope that you can join us by dropping your comment, your views, as they are very relevant to this discussion that we will be having today. I am Tere Laishita Sharma, doing this program together with Rachel Tanzi. Good afternoon, Rachel.
Afternoon, Tere.
All right, we have quite a number on our plate, but just before we go, that report is getting to us that some farmers have lost their life on the Niger Road. About over 6 of them were being burned beyond recognition, and it's really a sad one. I remember you and I always talking about being very careful, and then we clearly remember we were actually being scared during the festive season, but we're saying that the issue of road accidents is not just limited to a particular season. And I think that warning have been ongoing, especially coming from the Federal Road Safety regarding unnecessary overtaking, speeding, and the likes of it. And this is what happened to these farmers that actually lost their life because they were actually coming back from the farm at about 8 p.m. in the night, and then a Toyota Corolla was actually trying to overtake a trailer, and before you realized it was a head-to-head collision, and they actually died. And it's really a sad one, and I'm hoping that we know that especially some of our Nigerian roads are not very good. So we have to be very careful. So when you're trying to dodge a pothole here, you can actually cause an accident in another place. It's quite sad, and that was just why I felt maybe we should just touch it a little before we get into a discussion of the day, because it's really something that I think more emphasis needs to be laid out there for drivers and for a number of people who are road users to be very careful and then to try to be in their best behavior as much as they can when it comes to driving and all the rules, the do's and don'ts as well regarding using of the road.
First, our condolence to the family of the deceased, because now we have 6 members of a family gone, and it's only God that can comfort them in this trying moment and in something this painful. However, I think it's also concerning that we have farmers leaving their farms by 8 p.m. Perhaps even the access road to that farm was a difficult thing. So imagine the journey that kept them that late and all of that. The bottom line is that anybody could be on the road at that hour, and this accident would occur regardless. It might not be farmers, it could be businessmen, it could be normal individuals traveling from one place to another, and this will happen. And I think it's important that every driver that is on the road know how to drive, because if it's a situation of overtaking and then there is someone who made a mistake, whoever was overtaken perhaps didn't check the road properly and all of that, and it could be a case of speeding, because I've seen situation where someone was trying to overtake wrongly but could go back or stop or correct whatever mistake because they were moving on a normal speed and all of that. So much we can't overemphasize, Helen, how much work needs to be done when it comes to road safety, because when we keep seeing certain things that are happening, we can say some could have been avoided. There's no one single accident that couldn't be avoided. By the way, it's just one carelessness, one mistake. And the thing about the road is that things happen in split seconds. Exactly.
Once
and
you
then
get
before
distracted
you know
a
it,
little.
yes, lives are lost. But then this is one of those things that, well, could we blame it on the road? Perhaps could we blame it on the drivers? We could. So many factors in play, but it's really a sad one regardless. And I just hope more effort all around drivers, the road safety officials, the government on the road construction, just all the necessary measures. We can start seeing them and playing and making sure that the roads are safer every day.
Very true. So we look forward to seeing everybody, regardless of whether you are using the car or not. You need to be very careful, because someone once said that whenever you are using the road, just imagine that you are the only sane person on the road. Every other person is mad. Maybe that will help you to be, careful when using the road. Well, let's get into the discussion for today. I mean, we have been looking into the issue of the various ministries trying to defend their budget. We saw even information complaining that the budget is not much. We've seen various ministries. It seems as if for this year, every ministry is saying that they are being underfunded. Now we're going to be highlighting more on the defense ministry, because this is a ministry that is stuck with the responsibility of making sure that, you know what, every life and every property is well protected. And we're saying that the Minister of Defense, talking about Matawali, is complaining the fact that, you know what, the 50 billion naira that has been budgeted to the ministry is really not going to be enough, because we're looking into the welfare, we're looking into compensation, we're looking at getting equipment, and then many other things that need to be done. So when you break them down, you realize that these funds will not go, because in the morning we're looking at one of the papers where we see that about 41 billion naira will go just for equipment. So if you had to remove 41 out of 50, you'll be left with just 9 billion naira. So what is 9 billion going to do? Is it for the compensation of veterans, or is it for even paying of the well-being of, or the welfare of those who are presently serving? So when you look at this properly, you actually agree the fact that, you know what, more budget needs to be added to the defense ministry and then any other ministry that is underfunded. I think it's very important that the National Assembly take out its time to carefully scrutinize as well as analyze certain ministries that need more funds and then ministries that do not need more funds. So I think that is it, but then I am hoping that it will not just be on our paper, because of course this is not the first time we're hearing people complaining about funding when it comes to the defense ministry. But I hope that this will be a different case altogether, that even though the House have promised that they will look into it, so our fingers are crossed regarding how and when this added money or funding will be given to the defense ministry.
So I'm truly looking forward to when, as a country, we will start getting certain things right. And by certain things right is that at least let one sector be feeling the impact of good governance, of a good administration. It could be education, it could be health, it could be security, it could be oil and gas, but let just one place be functioning to the level that Nigerians could say, you know what, we're feeling the impact of this sector in the country, and we can say, you know what, thumbs up to this administration. At least this saw this amount of growth and that saw this amount of growth and all of that. But we are struggling in every dimension. Education is not getting the proper funding, the health sector is not getting the proper funding, and now we have security not getting the proper funding. And then when will the government start getting it right? Can we at least say, well, maybe we're struggling with security, but at least our education is at its peak, it's booming, and we could have that. Now we can talk about 50 billion for the Ministry of Defense, or the budget to that ministry, and it is small. Even without, the minister coming out to say, well, we are just, if we are to procure the right amount of kids gear and equipment we need to function, we are looking at spending about 41 billion. Even without him coming out to say that, you already know that 50 billion is small. It is a small amount, because you know what, we can talk about the agencies, the department that are under the defense ministry, the parasata, and then the one that stood out for me is the DICON, which is is a defense industry. They are the ones started with the responsibility of making kits, gear, and equipment for the military and all of that. That alone can go more than 50 that because we need to develop our own. We need to grow in our engineering when it comes to the army, the military, and all of that. When will we grow? These people still are able to create certain local weapons, certain things that we need. Some of the kids together, that we see our soldiers, we need more of that, because this department now has a lot of potentials in regarding to us getting to the level where we can even start supplying gears, military gears to our neighboring African countries or countries that we're doing way better than them, because this is how we stay and we depend. No wonder we are depending on used and jets and all of that from Germany, from the US, and all of that. And in the end of the day, it is not efficient enough because we need more. If that place is not getting enough funding, it means we still have a long way to go. We will still have to be dependent and wait for who is going to give us, who is going to hand out or hand down to us their used gears or tools or whatever we need, planes and all of that. So I just hope that there is a review, an upward review of this money today, because we'll never stop saying how, you know what, we can never say that there's too much funding as far as security is concerned. You know, we are yet to get to the position where we think that our armed forces are getting too much than they deserve. We are nowhere close to that. Yes, we are far behind, and there's a drastic measure that needs to be done. And also, we have the defense headquarters in charge of pensioners. So not only do they have to deal with those current serving soldiers, we're also looking at those who are retired. This is also on them. So how is 50 billion naira enough? I don't know what the rationale behind that allocation, but I think so much more needs to be put into it, just for the fact that we need to develop certain things. There are responsibilities above just the serving soldiers, but also our veterans and all of that. So there should be an upward review, and I'm looking forward to when security on its own seller will not just have 50 billion, but will be able to have 20% of the budget in Nigeria.
You know, when you're talking about 20%, it's more like us trying to, exceed the entire 2025 budget, and then you tend to look at, okay, just like you stated earlier, looking at, okay, education, how much or how many percent has been allocated? How about health? How many percent has been allocated? Now we're looking at some of those key sectors that we have to prioritize. This is where the government has no choice whatsoever. I mean, I remember last week or last 2 weeks, we were looking at our capital expenditure and then making it in comparison to our recurrent expenditure. And then we could see that capital expenditure is not getting what it should get, because there are a number of things that need to be done. And no wonder we're seeing the defense minister even saying that, you know what, if the funding that is needed is being given to the defense, that all the issue of insecurity will be done. So I think right now it's all for the Senate or the joint house together, the reps and Senate, to come together and say, you know what, how much can be given. I was making a comparison with what most of the terrorists are using, some of the sophisticated equipment they use, and then you wonder how on earth are terrorists able to actually afford that, and then the Nigerian government cannot afford. Of course, we know they get sponsorship from other people, but I believe that we have all that it takes. So let's keep our fingers crossed, just like you said. I hope the House actually giving a positive body language. So let us see that they give their best to make sure that the defense ministry is getting the needed allocation that it needs. Now we're looking at the federal government trying to collaborate to tackle food export challenges. And the first thing that came to my mind was, I clearly remember when you were talking about, if we have to go to that point where we need to start exporting some of our goods, then we have to be looking at the finished products. Now we're seeing that this is a collaboration between the Ministry of Health and then the Ministry of Trade, and then as well as we saw even NAFTA being collaborated in it to say that, whatever comes into the country is good for consumption, and then we're also looking at how healthy it is. I clearly remember when we opened our borders, and I said, I hope, this is where I'm hoping that we don't become a dumping ground for every manner of thing. And I clearly remember where last year or so we saw where counterfeit sugar was out there. We saw malaria drugs that were actually fake and all of that. And this is where, the trade industry is looking at what can we do to collaborate. Of course, we'll be looking at health and trade, and then looking at, these are two different ministries. They have nothing in common, but when you look at it closely, they have something in common, that they have to come together, collaborate, and say, okay, what can we do to make sure that, you know what, all of these challenges that we experience as a result of food export is actually being tackled? Because if we don't do something about it, it's going to get out of hand. And then the earlier, the better. I think this is what the ministry is trying to do. And I think this is really a good synergy and collaboration that I'm hoping to see more ministries trying to come together to see what can be done to address certain things. I mean, we're looking at the issue of food not even being enough, food insecurity, and the likes of it. We saw when onions last year, reports coming in why onions is quite expensive because of the flooding,
Yes.
and then all of that. But then this is what, this ministries talking about the trade and health are saying, you know what, we need to come together to look for a lasting solution to some of these challenges that we experience in the country.
Of course, when you look at it, the first question is, what does these two ministry have in relation? And then you realize that nothing much. But when I think the point of their meeting precisely and stated by the ministers for this ministry is precisely a draft policy and mechanical device of syringe and needles that is manufacturing in Nigeria. So we're looking at the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare coming and saying, you know what, we have a draft policy concerning syringe and needles that will be manufactured in the country. And so eventually, when we are able to get to this point of manufacturing this product, then we can now talk about trade and investment, and that is where exports come in. And then it's also that there's so much more that we can do, because so far so good, we are relying more on the importation of pharmaceuticals into the country, drugs and every other thing. And then so when we get to this point, and as a ministry or as the health sector, then we can be able to alliance and say, you know what, let's talk about export, let's talk about investment in these things that we are able to come up with, and then find a way forward. And also when it comes to the value chain of food, you know, and nutrition in the country, this is where the health sector and then the social welfare comes in and say, you know what is the value chain of our food in this country regarding what we have? Because before you take something out, you have to meet the standard. So now health is coming in to say, you know what, we are exporting this processed food. The quality is purposely to be able to compete with global market, because if we would have our president, one of the first thing at the G20 summit when giving the UN General Council meeting, precisely when given the permission to talk at the council meeting, he precisely said that we need to have a fair ground to trade equal. We should be as equal partners in the market. That is, Africa being seen also treated fairly equally, given the same access to other countries, regardless, to other continents, Europe and America and all of that. Because when you look at it, when you go to the global market, Africa is not treated fairly. Nigeria, precisely, there are certain access we have to financial institutions, certain countries do, and we do not. However, our currencies are being accepted. We could trade, we could send, but when it comes to us receiving, we do not have. So if we are having our president moving for the motion that we need a fair ground to be able to carry out trade and be recognized globally, then of course we have to look at our value chain. What are we taking out there? And I believe that this is where this, synergy, this collaboration makes a lot of sense, as it is, in as much as it look like two separate ministries. But when you look at what they have to come and to come together and make this work, then you just can't help but say, you know what, it is true. Trade and industry definitely have business to do with health and social welfare. Yes,
of course. And I look forward to seeing more ministries looking in that same direction.
Yes.
Where I'm waiting to see what will the Ministry of Agri have to do with the Ministry of Education, in as much as it look like it's too far or two different ministries, but they definitely have something to do when they come to the middle.
True.
So we look forward to seeing more ministries. I mean, we're beginning to see some ministries showing their relevance. I mean, before we're wondering, is there any ministry called trade and investment, because we can't really feel them.
can't,
But
true.
I'm excited that we're beginning to see them showing up. So we hope to see more synergy, more collaboration this year, to see that, you know, what, our economy can also rub shoulders with other economy when
Yes.
it comes to our trade. Well, thank you so much, Rachel,
You're
for doing
welcome,
this with
Cindy.
me. As well, thank you to our viewers and every other person who made the program a success. Until we come again, please do have a lovely day ahead.